Good morning. As I start on my day with my teas and healthy elements, not the cigar, I get this view of health and just perspective, you know. And here's my setup. It's interesting, you know. I was given a book by Debbie, my birthdays, at the table with Jesus, and we're actually at a table with him. So, what an amazing day I spent yesterday to set up for this reading. I got to some really interesting holy places. I don't know if I'm calling them right. I'm not sure. I say they're holy because in the scripture they're referenced, right? And the word has I've read them. I read them before I ever came here, not knowing that I would see these places. The first one is we saw the cave of St. John the Baptist, who set up the path for the Son of Man, and Jesus. And he kept talking about that, and he did it around the Jordan River, which I also got to see, and to see at the other side how close, Israel is to Jordan, right? So I got to see where he lived, and then I got to see where Jesus was baptized. And I got to see the Jordan. Got to splash some of the water from that holy place onto me and with my family. I also went to Mount Nebo. I read about the death of Moses, and it was so interesting to get the perspective of how God, at 120 years of age, being healthy, Moses and everything, just said it's time, and showed him the promised land, and got to see Mount Nebo, the promised land, and just could imagine at that point how God's promise was revealed to Moses, showing that his future promise, which was that his son would come, would also be revealed very clearly, which St. John the Baptist kept talking about, right? That he was coming. And then from there we got to experience the Dead Sea, right? What at the sunset. It was just a spectacular, most breathtaking view I've seen, probably one of the top 3 in my life. And we got to walk to it and admire it and see that sunset come down. At the same time, was getting dark. And we ended up going to, on a purpose of a trip, there was Lot Cave, right? Lot was the gentleman that was saved from Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah, I believe, is the name of the place. I may be wrong, but the place where there was all this debauchement happening, sex, all these things that, you were just, God was just upset with, and he sent an angel to save Lot and his family. And Lot ended up being saved from the fire of there, and was so scared that he ended up moving with his 2 daughters into a cave. And we got to walk just before supposedly it was supposed to close, jump over a little fence and experience the cave. The cave, which, if you ever get to read it, the things that happened in that cave created 2 independent groups of people, the Moabs and the Ammonites, right? And so, in an interesting fashion, right? But I believe that everything happens with God's will. And, we may just at some point take a little detour and quickly come back. And yesterday, there were certain pieces that happened that I thought were very powerful. One was we met the day before. We had met this gentleman named Brock Pierce, and with him there was a young kid named Daniel that was there with us, and he asked if he could join on our trip as he wanted to see the Jordan, and he did. The next day, of course, we were happy to have him. And I was thinking about, what was the purpose of him being there, and he's a very inquisitive person. Was interested in learning about kind of a journey, and I shared what's happened to my life to him, and I believe that he needed to hear that, not because there was anything to be proud or boast about, but for him to be aware of the potential challenges that life could happen and could have for him. So I'm very happy that God put Daniel in our path, and we got to share that experience with him, and it was purposeful. So God's perfection just keeps working and coming out. And today, as I set up for this reading, Maida has given me some input and some thoughts about protection and some perspectives, right? And that I need to continue to move forward. And that's what I want to do. So as I move forward with my readings, the first reading, it's pretty clear. It's one that I shared actually with Daniel yesterday, a perspective from a friend of mine named Keith Williams, that a mentor in my career, that pretty much said, the best leaders are those leaders that the people at the end think that they did it themselves and don't need that recognition. And, David, in the first reading, it was all about, as a king, recognizing that he owes to God and that he is not the one. He's his servant. And we're all servants of him. And we're servants helping others. And we're servants in providing the word of Jesus of love and forgiveness. It's just so interesting how all that works. After reading that, I went to the Table with Jesus book, and again, it was another view of how, what it is to be saved. What do you do with it? And it talks about sin, right? And how it's saving us from sin. That it is that salvation, right? It is to be saved. It's for us to see when we sin, or when we're about to sin, or when we think about sinning, or the risk of sinning, and then we kind of adjust. We adjust with the word and the life and what would Jesus want us to do. And I feel really clear with that. It's a struggle every day for me. I'm talking about it every day. I'm not afraid, ashamed to talk about it. It's the truth. I know that I'm in this journey, but I am moving forward inch by inch every day. And I know that people out there also struggle with it every day. Just be honest. Just say, yeah, okay, yeah. Put on my pants the same way anybody else, and it happens. But my pants and my heart and my shirt and my body are protected by God. That's it. That's the difference. That's what it means to be saved. It means that you have Jesus protecting you every day, and that you can come back to him every day, every night, throughout the day. Just recognize that, and everything will be fine. The Poems and Prayers book was interesting because it shared about a view of how time and truth and karma kind of work together. You know, time is always moving, right? You're moving in time, right? We talked about yesterday about the past and the future. And what I meant by the past was, don't dwell on the past. Don't live on the past. You got to kind of forget that the bad things about the past, because today is a different day. And Maida told me today, she's like, one of the things, I have a bracelet that says, be present. And that's what I see, is you got to be present, and you got to be present with him. And the past is history. We leverage it in the Bible. It helps us. But we cannot bring the past to our current state. We have to understand it, learn from it, and move on away from it. So in books and poems and prayers, Matthew McConaughey kind of talks about how he just understands that the time and truth are, one comes in and out, which is truth, and time is always moving. And then karma, right? You do bad things to people, they may do bad things to you. You do good things to people, they may still do bad things to you, but the universe will do good things to you. It's kind of interesting, right? It's like, it's not about them doing it to you, it's about the universe doing it to you, right? So I thought that was really cool. And then I moved on to the word, and it was a psalm about David, and it's called The Death of the Son. It's in Psalms 9 and 10. And all it really much said is, man is bad. It does all these bad things. But God is right. And he always looks for the people that need him, for the people that are struggling, for the people that need to find him, the ones that are he encouraged to listen, for us to listen for their cry. And it's kind of like I struggle with David, because David always kind of recognizes the bad thing of man, but I think it's to keep it present, to say, hey, this world is not yours, God. It is the devil's world. So I got to be aware of all these things. And I know who you look for. And I know who you help. And I know what you want me to do, is to praise you, recognize you all the time, and to help those that need you. And I thought you started with David on that, servant leadership, and then ended up in the word with David as well. In regards to, discerning call for ministry, I thought it was pretty clear message, which was, if you're called to ministry, you want to talk about him all the time. You can't just shut up. You got to kind of share his word, and you got to be passionate about it, and that's an interesting perspective. I ended up with reading the prayer that I read yesterday as well, surrendering to God's will. It's so hard to surrender. We're just not built for surrendering. We're built for fighting. So as we think about it, it's like losing control is something people want to accomplish. Is not losing control. It's control. It's what they want to accomplish. In a sense, you got to lose control to God, and you got to trust completely. And I continue to learn every day about it, how to leave a little bit more of that control behind. So, hope just continue to document this process. Hope someday provide some significance, and just God is great. Looking forward to going to Petra today. Nestor, Jonathan, and Debbie, and continue to learn. So that's it. Bye bye.